to see people embrace the show and kind of the message that it was telling?
Well, I want to believe that no matter when the show came out, that the art of the show, the art of the filmmaking, the art of the storytelling would be as exciting. Even if 2020 had not happened, even if the last 300 years had not happened, to be honest with you, I wanted to be that kind of timeless storytelling, that kind of timeless art making that is not made good by the fact that it is socially and politically resonant. However, it's great that it is. It is great that it is. And I respond to that kind of storytelling and filmmaking because I like to see something that doesn't pretend that yes, it's sci-fi, yes, it's horror, yes, it's an imagined world and world making, but we still live in this country. We still live in the world that we live in. And I think the art of Lovecraft is successful because the way that it portrays these issues, because there's great art, there's great storytelling that is about racism in America, but the way that Lovecraft is telling those stories is specific to the sci-fi genre, right? It's specific to the horror genre. And what's great about that particularly is because Black people have been sort of erased from those genres a lot. And, it's a trope that Black people die within the first 15 minutes of a horror film. And it's a trope because it's real. It happens so often. I saw something last year and there was a Black character in it who was the lead of the show and he was dead 20 minutes into the show. So this is what makes Lovecraft so fun for me to do. It makes it exciting to hear the response because people, Black people particularly, they love sci-fi, they love horror, they love that, they love those genres, and they don't see themselves in those genres. And I think they are excited to see themselves in something that they love.
Well, so that ties perfectly into my next question, which is, I know in previous interviews you've spoken about how you love to read and how a lot of you and your co-stars are very nerdy about specific things. And that definitely translates into the show itself. What is it like to have the show that not only kind of reclaims Black people's role in a horror or genre space, but it also kind of elevates like Black nerd culture at the same time?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Courtney is a huge reader. Every day, he's sending me an epic text of something that an excerpt of something that he's read. When I say every day, I mean every day. He's sending me something like that. Journey is a huge reader and intellect. Jonathan is as well, and so I books are my friends. I just love this. Like Susan Sontag, I think, has this great quote where she calls books her spaceships, and that's how books are for me. And they've always been that way for me. In this room that I'm in right now, there was a rocking chair. There's a window right here and there's a rocking chair right there when I was growing up. And I would come in this room and this would be my spaceship. I would have these huge, big books, and they were probably twice the size of my body. And I would sit in these books on rainy, stormy afternoons here in Mississippi, and I would be transported. And so to play a character who is in many ways, and I think all of these characters in Lovecraft are all aliens themselves. They are a part of a world that looks at them differently. And it's not just about race. It's about who love that we are reclaiming Black nerd culture. I love that we are, reclaiming that space from H.P. Lovecraft himself, who was, as you know, a virulent racist. And a lot of his writing is rooted in paranoia of Black people and Jews and Asians and everybody else in the world. That was a lot of what his writing is rooted in. And so I've said this a few times, and I'm going to continue to say this. I hope he's somewhere turning in his grave, said that we are using his name in service of telling Black stories.
I love that answer. So your kind of solo episode in season 1 is just so powerful and so impactful. Like every time I've thought about it since I saw it the first time, I just get goosebumps because it's just so epic and expansive. And I love how the show has already done so much in a horror space, but then it introduces the multiverse and it introduces so much from sci-fi. So what was it like for you to kind of have to play within that space and have your character's emotional arc be tied to that sci-fi expansive kind of space?
Fun. It was a blast. It was a blast. I've always wanted to be in one of those movies where there's like the special effects and you have to pretend that a dragon is chasing you and you're riding the dragon. I want to do that. I wanted to do that forever. So this was my shot. This was my shot. And I had a fantastic experience in doing that. I love that Hippolyta is an astronomer, and I love that was a metaphor for her journey into space, her discovery of space, for herself was her trying to find her space in the world. And her being an astronomer was a metaphor for that. And then we had to see her go on this space journey that went through time and periods that, with Josephine Baker and then in Africa and Amazon, just all of the stuff that she did, was just so fun to do, and to be able to say those brilliant words that were written by the writers of the show, and to say them to other Black women, and to hear and to know that other Black women all across this country, and women period, heard those words and felt, as I've heard 1,000 times from different women, heard and seen. And the response that I've gotten from that has been really profound. I'm doing, panels, in the coming weeks with a film festival and a conference on women. And all of them have set aside a panel specifically inspired by that episode. So it's great. It's great. I'm so glad that I got to be a part of that.
That's so amazing. So another aspect I really love of season 1 is Hippolyta and Dee's dynamic. It feels like even as the show gets to its most kind of horrific aspects, their relationship and that mother-daughter relationship is really, really just pure and very emotional to watch. So what was it like to kind of find that dynamic and have it evolve over the course of the season as both of your characters are having so much happen to them?
Well, my daughter is one of the best actors that I've ever worked with, period. She's fantastic. And so I kind of fell in love with her anyway, off camera. So what people saw on camera was really a reflection of how we were off camera. She's just a joy. She's just a joy. And I'm glad you talked about that, or you mentioned that, because that was really important to me too. It was really special to me too, that their relationship was so rich and so tender and poignant, but also very complicated, especially at the end, because Hippolyta chooses herself and abandons Dee. And so Dee has to live with that abandonment. And so what happens to that relationship after a mother chooses herself? So it like so many things in Lovecraft, it starts off one way and then it completely blows everything up about that and turns out to be something else.
That's
So, yeah, I love the, I love the richness of that.
Well, so what surprised you the most while filming season 1?
Everything. Everything. There was nothing. I did not take anything for granted shooting the show. And you couldn't, because we were really, for me anyway, I can't speak for my other castmates, who might have worked on similar things before, but I've never worked on anything like this before. And for me, I was in uncharted territory, so every day was surprising, for me, because all the scripts were surprising, and I would read them and I would think, how in the heck are they going to do this? How? And I think that Misha and the writers were only limited by their imaginations. And so we were the arms and legs of their imaginations. And so it was always, there was no ceiling to what they thought of, so I was always surprised by it. So I stand by that answer. Every day I was surprised by something, every day.
That's awesome. So obviously the show hasn't officially been renewed for season 2 yet, and I'm sure you can't say much about that status, but if season 2 does happen, what are you most excited to explore with Hippolyta?
There's no turning back for her. She can't go back to making pies in Chicago. She can't go back to making pies in Chicago. You know what I mean? So where this woman has been in space, and been many selves in space and in different eras of time. So what would be the next phase for her? I love this idea of the multiverse. I love that idea, and I like the idea that Hippolyta can inhabit many selves within herself. So if there is a season 2, and fingers crossed that there will be a season 2, that I hope that it goes more in that direction, playing the different selves that are inside of this woman.
I love that. So for my last question, you actually touched on it a little bit earlier, but because you said you want to be in a big CGI-filled kind of superhero movie, some of your co-stars have obviously either been superheroes or are going to be characters in a comic book movie. Is there a specific franchise or character that you would love to be a part of, like something that you would really, really want to play as like a dream role in that kind of space?
Ooh. That's really interesting. The thing is I kind of have like really an expansive view about what I think of as sci-fi and what I think of as horror, and they aren't necessarily, and I don't want to offend, but they're not necessarily comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Please forgive me. Don't be mad.
It's totally understandable. That's totally okay.
So I think of a writer like Toni Morrison. I think she writes horror, right? No one thinks of her as Toni Morrison as a horror writer, but she writes horror. So any of her characters, I would love to be a part. I would love to be a part of that. And I'm not specifically a character, but I would love to, be in something that N.K. Jemisin writes. I would love to be a part of that kind of world making that she does. So no offense to the comic book folks, but.
We totally understand. No worries. N.K. Jemisin is.
And also,
I totally agree.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, this has been so great to get to chat to you, and I'm so excited to see what the future holds for Lovecraft and for you in general. This has been so much fun to get to talk to you.